Art is too important not to share. Welcome to the Allie and Callie Artcast.
Hi, I'm Allie.
And I'm Callie, and we're with the Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance. Hello, everyone.
Hello, we're back.
We're back, and we're tired.
We are tired.
And why are we tired, Allie?
Because we had a fundraiser last Saturday. And
it was a huge success.
It was.
So we are kicking off, hopefully relaxing in the next couple weeks.
I'm actually relaxing in Portugal.
I think you're in Portugal right now. Which is amazing.
Right?
How we can do this modern technology.
I know.
I love it.
We are magicians.
I'm sure you're going to have a fabulous time.
I am going to have a fabulous time.
Well-deserved vacation. Mm-hmm. And we'll see all the pictures later.
Yes, you will.
Or on Facebook or wherever you're going to post it. Somewhere. We've got the Mayor's Awards on the 4th. So I will be attending that, but you'll be in Portugal.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to. Kristen will be there.
There's some great people were nominated.
Yes.
Amy Durazi gets excellence in the
My good
arts.
friend Amy Durazi, who's a fabulous performer, and then
Joss Banak got student excellence,
who won was awarded Jack Bannon Scholarship from the Arts and Culture Alliance, which is awesome. And then Dave and Sue Denton.
Yes, as supporters of the arts.
And then Nick Thorpe as educator.
Right. And then, of course, our lovely Roberta Larson is getting the...
Let's see, Lifetime Achievement.
Lifetime
Achievement, yes. So
which she deserves.
It's going to be a beautiful ceremony on October 4th. I think you have to RSVP, but I think usually you can just show up.
I don't think you have to RSVP.
They made me RSVP.
It's a lovely event.
I wonder why I had to RSVP.
Because you were an award winner.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go. I'm special.
They wanted to make sure you were there.
The special people.
That's right. You are
special.
I
feel special now.
Yeah, she is special needs.
There's no doubt about that right now. That's how I feel right now.
Anyway. Well, I'm excited that we have Bill Bozly here.
Me too.
Bill has been performing in this area for a long time, but I met him at Super One in Post Falls before he became big time.
Big time. Welcome, Bill.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Bill, tell us about yourself.
I know. How did you get into music?
I got into music at a very early age. I would say earlier than most. I found out this later from my mom. When I was a baby, most babies, when they get up, they kind of cry and, is waiting for their mom and dad or someone to come get them. I would get up and sing. That's how I woke up every morning.
Wow.
Just get up in my crib and sit there and start singing until someone came and got me. So that's where it started, I guess. So I guess I've been doing music from the time I popped out, I guess.
Yeah.
But I didn't get my first guitar till I was 15. That's when I started. I came from a musical family. My dad played guitar and mandolin in a bluegrass band.
Oh, cool.
I was born in Colorado, and my dad was going to CSU there in Fort Collins, and so he
my sister went there.
Yeah,
from Colorado,
and he played in a little bluegrass band. So that's kind of how my first introduction to music was, sitting around the backyard with banjos and fiddles and everything, just going. I thought, this is music. This is pretty cool. And I had a sister. I have two sisters. One's 10 years older. One's 5 years older. So it's kind of a 5-year gap between all of us. And the oldest one, she started playing guitar and was really good. She was like my first influence, I guess you could say. You know, someone that I was just like, that's so cool. You can make this noise out of this box. And the other sisters kind of dabbled a little bit, but it was mostly just my sister, my dad. Then we moved up here when I was 6 years old and moved to Post Falls. And my sister played in a little group, it was a little all-girl group. There's 3 of them, and they sang, just acoustic guitar and stuff. And then she would play little gigs back at Cloud 9. You remember that?
Oh,
in
Cloud
North
9.
Shore,
right?
And
How fun.
so she would play there, and And then, they moved away because they were older and stuff. And then I was 15. I got my first guitar, and was one of those things. I had like $200 to my name, and my dad was getting in a lot of trouble, as 15-year-old boys do. And he was like, "You better figure out something to do with your life, because you're headed in the wrong direction, And I was like, I really like music. Music has always been before there was safe spaces, that was my safe space. And we moved around a lot as a kid. My dad was an engineer, and so he would, rather than work at like one spot where most engineers do for an engineering firm, he would work on a project and then move to another company, would move him to another country or another state or something. So I learned early on that there's a lot of things in life that aren't constant. I didn't have those friends. I'd make friends, and then 6 months later we'd move. It was always frustrating, and school was always frustrating and stuff. So music was just that thing that, no matter where I went in the world, music was music. And I could always count on that to be like something that made me happy. And so I was like, that's what I want to do. And so, I got my first guitar. My dad bought it for me. I didn't even get to pick it out, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And he took my last $200 I had and came home with the guitar. And I remember running outside. He got off work, and I ran outside like, "Hey, you got my guitar?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I remember sitting down with it, took it inside, and it was this Gibson SG, which is a nice guitar, but it was at the time in the late 80s, all the guitars were like red and pink and stuff, it was all like all that fancy stuff. And I was like, what is this? This is like an old man guitar, and now I actually own one. Not the same one, but I was like, oh, okay. But I was like, I sat down with it, and it was just the first time I felt like, this is what I'm going to do. This is my future. This is and never looked back from there. And I just started from there. It was kind of frustrating at first day, because I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna start learning some songs. And my dad came in and was like, hey, we got to go to this prayer meeting or Bible study or something like that. And I was like, oh, really?
I'm busy.
I'm like, I'm just gonna sit here and play this guitar. And he was like, no, we don't trust you in the house by yourself. You're coming with us. So that was my first day. And I was very lucky. I got a friend you probably know, Greg Yort, from Black Happy. Before he was in Black Happy, we were in 9th grade. We had a couple classes together, and he taught me. He would write out songs when we were supposed to be learning Spanish or something. He would write out these little songs on a piece of paper and give it to me, and he'd be like, okay, learn that. And the first one was like Wipe Out, that song? Because that was good to get the fingers going, and then after that it was all Metallica and Ozzy and stuff like that. So, but that's how I guess it got started. Was that the
right?
Yeah.
So how did you end up in Coeur d'Alene?
Well, after we moved around a little bit, we came back to Coeur d'Alene permanently. I was in 5th grade, so I guess like 10, 11 years old, and we moved to Dalton Gardens because it had a better school district, according to my parents. And then we had a house there, and that's where I lived until I graduated from school and went into the military. I went into the military for 4 years right out of high school, and then came back, and I had a little child, a little baby girl, and been here ever since. So,
oh, wow.
So this has been home for about 45 years, I guess, now.
Yeah.
Even though we moved away, this has always been home. I felt like, which is weird as a musician, it took me a long time to say this is home and this is where I want to live, because, as a musician, everyone tells you, you got to go somewhere else. You got to go to one of the big markets, Seattle, New York, LA. Back then it was LA. The Seattle thing hadn't really taken off, and so, yeah, it was, then you get a little older, and you realize, this is a pretty nice place to live. Yeah. If I can figure out how to make a living here, then I'll do it, What better place to to make a living doing something you love.
Right.
So.
Absolutely.
So for a while, Super One was like your day job, and then you were doing music. And at some point, you said, I'm assuming, you said, I'm ready to do this full time. And you did it.
I did, yeah. Super One was a great. I don't know if you remember. I think I was working there from 2000 to 2003 or 4, and that's where I kind of came up with the whole Bill Bozly thing, and was like, I needed something different, something that I could just treat as like a band. People ask me that a lot, how'd you come up with this? And it wasn't like my first choice, but it was the only one that I Googled that wasn't taken, so I came up with this. And I remember Super One, that's where I did that Gimme the Mic contest. I remember that. And that was like it was kind of it was really special, but at the same time kind of frustrating, because it was this music contest where you just go and sing and don't play guitar. I didn't know what to do, but I made it to the finals and was like really excited. It was a great experience, and I was so overwhelmed with the customers of Super One, and that's kind of because they all kind of came together, because there was a point at the end where you had to vote, and they all my customers that would come in would vote, and that's where I really started my networking, because I don't know if you got a CD, but I got my
CD at Weinstein and Dine.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my first before that, I think I had this little a demo that had 3 or 4 songs on it, and I would, I was doing it all by hand, burning them on my computer and printing out the stuff and cutting them out, and I'd go to work every day with 15 or 20 CDs, and all the customers that would come in and ask, hey, what are you doing? I'd be like, hey, this is my little CD, check it out, tell me what you think, and that was my first networking. I was like, I'm going to make the most of this. I had just started, and actually Weinstein and Dine, funny you mentioned that. That was one of the first gigs. That was the first gig in Coeur d'Alene where that they said, hey, we want you to play. A friend of mine, Roxanne, that was on the board for that, and she said, hey, the guy that we had, dropped out or is not working out, would you be interested in doing this? And that's 20 years ago. I've been doing it every year, minus 1 year in the pandemic, I think.
Right.
That we didn't do it, and it's always been kind of my. It's not a great paying gig, but it's you learn after several thousand gigs. It's like, this is a special gig, and it's helping my hometown, the Education Foundation, and it's always it's fun to go do that gig, and it's one of the first ones of the year in March. So it's kind of like, hey, start practicing, get your stuff together. And they've always been so nice. They always are very understanding, because I try to bring I usually bring different people every year to try to make it interesting, because I'm like, why would people want to come hear me 20 years in a row, And this year we did the country band, and
I was there when you invited Sean Owsley to play with you. That was fun.
Yeah, he did. He's always great with the crowds, and he's just a good guy. I can't say enough good about that guy. He's just a good friend that, one of those things, it's just the way music works. You just, you ride the wave where it takes you, and sometimes you don't know where it's going to take you. And one day a friend calls me up and says, hey, we need a guitar player and a keyboard guy. And I was like, hey, I got this keyboard guy. And I show up, and it's Sean and his little band, with these guys, and it's just been so fun. It's fun to see him grow, and to finally be in a position where I can show somebody a couple of ropes, and then they take it, and because a lot of, you teach kids a lot of times and they just go, yeah, okay, that's great, but my mom's making me do this, but with him, it was like he was so hungry and just wanted to do it, and see where he's taking it, and to have the #1 band in Spokane now is like, wow, I'm so proud. It's like a proud daddy moment, even though we're like the same age. It's funny. He'll understand.
Hey y'all, it's Jason from Tubbs Coffee Roasters. We are North Idaho's specialty coffee roaster. We are homegrown and we are local. We love coffee and we love our community, especially Allie and Callie in ArtCast. We have a retail space in our roastery in Hayden, and we can also be found on the shelves at Super One and Yokes. And if you like to buy coffee online, we do offer subscriptions. You can find us at tubbscoffeeroasters.com. Support arts and culture and your local roaster. That's all.
So you go by Bill Bozly.
Yes.
But your real name is Andy.
Yes.
Why?
Andy Stidham. Well, the first thing was Andy Stidham didn't really have a good ring to it. It was hard to spell and pronounce and everything like that. And my first name is actually William, and Andy is my middle name. And so I thought, well, I'll go with... I wanted something... This is going to sound totally corny, but... one of the first albums I was really into was Ozzy Osbourne, right? And I thought it was so cool how they would chant, Ozzy, Ozzy, when they were ready for it. And I was like, something like that. So I thought, Bozly, that's close.
Bozly.
Yeah, and I know it's totally corny, and I thought the whole first name, last name having the same letter, kind of a common thing, with people, Jack Johnson, guys like that. And so I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And like I said, it wasn't my first choice. I don't remember what my first choice was, but it was the first one that I Googled that wasn't taken.
Yeah,
and I thought,
that'll work.
I'm going to go with that. And I needed to. Another reason was, for like business purposes, and if I ever like took this and made something of it, like on a national level, that this would be my thing, and tax purposes, I could just kind of treat it like a band. My band's name was Bill Bozly.
Right. Yeah.
So it was just kind of a joke, and I planned on, actually going and maybe taking this outside of Coeur d'Alene eventually. So it's kind of weird. Most people in town know me as Andy, and so that part didn't work out. But that's just the way it works sometimes in this business, And so I just go with it. And it's kind of it's when people call me on the phone and they say, "Hey, is this Bill?" Then I know to put on my professional voice, my big boy voice, and be like, "Yes, this is Bill," and instead of, "Hey, what's up?" It's Andy. So it has its ups and downs, So you just roll with it.
I think that's really interesting.
That's good.
Yeah.
So what was the first band you were with? And I know you were with your Rhythm Dogs. And name some of the bands you played with besides Bill Bozly.
I can't remember. I don't know if I'd have to think pretty hard about the very first band. I guess the first real band I started in was after I joined the military. I was 19 when I got, and I was shipped over to Germany, of all places, and met some guys right off the bat that we got along really good. And you don't have a lot of people to choose from because bases in Germany are very small. It's like kind of like the NIC campus size, not like in America where they're like these sprawling cities.
Giant,
And so I met some guys right off the bat, and we got a little band going, and of course that's always frustrating because you get a band and then someone gets shipped off. So you start another band. But it was a great experience for me because I played with the first band I was in was kind of a hard rock cover band. We wrote some songs and stuff too, but I think the name of our band was Dashboard Mary, named after those little Virgin Marys that people put on their dashboard.
Funny.
That's a good
and then I played in a couple R&B bands with where I was like the only white guy, and I think they were just using me because I had a practice room which was very hard to come by, and so they were like, let's let this little white guy play in our band, and it was a great experience because I was like, oh, this is neat. It's R&B music and totally different. 'Cause back here in the States, and all my friends, we were all metalheads. That's all we listened to. If you strayed outside, it was like, hey, what are you doing? That's not, that doesn't have double bass in it, so you can't listen to it. And so I quickly realized that. So then I got out of there, came back home, kind of went into getting back into writing music and stuff. I played in a little band called Trip. That was a local band around here, a little 3-piece band, and we played all the Cove Bowl and some of the other little places around here, and that was you remember the Cove Bowl? With Mellifluent and all those guys. We used to play a lot of shows with Mellifluent, and did that for a while, and then that fizzled out. I always go back to writing my own stuff, and that's always my backup plan. And then so I guess more recently played with Colby Akoff.
Oh, really?
That kid who's doing great
doing
things.
Really well.
I'm so proud of him. He was his first little band that he got. We were playing the Eagles and stuff like that.
Right.
We were called the Saddle Tramps, and we'd play with him. And I was so proud of that kid because I recorded. I had a little studio for a while, and he came down with his mom, and I'd known his dad for a long time back from when I was a kid shooting skeet, of all things. And that was my first job, was a puller at the ski club. And so anyways, his mom came down and he recorded Wagon Wheel, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. This kid's got some talent, he could go somewhere if he really sticks with it. And so luckily he did, and I was like so happy when he got a little band together. I was like, yeah, I'll play in your little band with you and help you get going. And and he kind of quit for a while and went down to college and then put together a band, and now he's just got signed to Sony. So I'm like, I couldn't be happier for the kid. It's funny, his mom and dad are still good friends of mine. I play Heidi's the Fernan mayor, and so I play there.
Talked to Heidi.
Yeah, we just interviewed her.
Oh, did you? Yeah. She's great.
Right.
So she's always been a big supporter, and them. And then I played with Sean Housley for a while, and we had a little band called the Blue Mustangs, and that was another great experience because it was older music. He's a big like Elvis fan, and James Brown and Sam Cooke, all these guys that I should have listened to, but I never really did. And so he was kind of forced you into it, and it was just great working with that guy and getting to meet someone that I'd been watching on the news forever.
Right.
Woke up every morning, and you always wonder, what are these people like? What do they like away?
Oh, the newscaster? Yeah. Because I'm like, I know that name. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then I just, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And why do I know that name?
Yeah, a pleasant surprise. I mean, he wound up being like the coolest guy, that you're just like, wow, this is so nice. And he and I are like brothers now. And
that's fun.
Buying an amp from him tomorrow. And so we have this little competition with the guitars and stuff. We're always buying new stuff, and it's just funny. So I played with him for a while. And then, most recently, the Rhythm Dogs, playing with those guys who I've always looked up to. Jim was a teacher of mine in 7th grade, so he was a cool teacher. And when it came, he and I were kind of playing. He'd been playing with me on some of my solo gigs, so he would just kind of join in. We had another guy that played drums, and we still do that. We have like the Bill Bozly trio, and we do some gigs around mostly farmers markets and things like that.
Right,
But
Who's in the Bill Bozly trio?
It's me and Jim Leon and Brian Mahoney. He plays drums. And he's also the drummer in the Rhythm Dogs, so it's kind of like half the Rhythm Dogs.
Right.
If you can't afford the whole full band, you can just get us.
You just have a little part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
The bite-sized version.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun because sometimes you have a little more freedom to branch out a little bit. With a full band, when there's 6 or 7 people, you all kind of got to be rigid to make sure you stay together, and so that's a lot of fun. We have a blast playing together, all of us. And the Rhythm Dogs, I've always looked up to those guys because they've been around for 35 years. And, and some of my favorite musicians in town played with them, and so when that opportunity came about, I've just been happy ever since. It's a lot of fun. I love playing with those guys, so I look forward to every gig with those guys. I wish we played twice as many as what we did, but it keeps it fresh, and we're all just good friends. So it's nice to play in a band when you have people that you respect, and everything works really good. And when it does, it's just a beautiful thing. You really look forward to it. It's not because bands can be a little bit of a hassle, sometimes. You get a couple bad apples in there.
A couple of egos can ruin a good band. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about. What is this? You opened for Eddie Vedder?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. How did that happen?
This was kind of funny because we actually drove to the coast and talked to a driftwood artist there. And he is friends with Eddie Vedder. Oh. And we kind of talked about Eddie Vedder there, and he made a driftwood chair for Eddie. And now you've opened for him. It's kind of like
full circle.
Yeah, Eddie Vedder. It's Eddie Vedder week.
Well, that's definitely been a highlight of my summer. For that, I got to give you a little backstory. Back when I was in the military, backing up, I just wanted to play guitar. That was my thing. I learned to sing in choir. Had great experience with that. One of my teachers was one of her other guests, Julie Powell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, her first year teaching was at Coeur d'Alene High School. She was replacing Mrs. Terhark, who was an amazing teacher. And choir is one thing. When I sang low bass, and that was the first thing I realized was I got this low voice, and so all the singers I wanted, my favorite singers were all like, way up there, and I'm like, I'm fine with just singing a harmony here and there, but I play guitar, and I was fine with that. And then when I was in the military, that was 91, 92, and if you remember, that's when the Seattle scene kind of blew up.
Oh yeah.
And I'd already been like a big fan of Nirvana and Soundgarden, and I wanted to sing like Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, but nobody can really sing like that guy because he's and I was just like, if I can't sing like that guy, I don't want to sing, because he's like the man. And so then this band Pearl Jam came along, and I was like singing along. We'd listen to their stuff. We played some of their music in my band, and I was like, this guy's got a low, kind of a baritone voice, kind of like me. And I was like, I can kind of hit some of those notes. And it just happened to a friend of mine, one of my buddies that it was in my platoon. He drugged me out, and he's like, hey, you play in a band? Let's go sing karaoke. And I was like, man, I can't sing. Have you heard my voice? I'm like, he's like, well, just come out. It'll be fun. And maybe you'll sing if you want, but it's a lot of fun. I've never done it before. So we go out, and a few beers in, I'm like, all right, give me the damn book, the big book with all the songs, and I'm like looking through it, and I found two songs. One was Elton John, Your Song by Elton John. Popular, one of his first big hits, and the other one was Black by Pearl Jam. And I was like, I'll give this a shot. And so I sang the Elton John one, but that one's kind of flat, doesn't really go in a lot of places, but it's a great song.
Yeah.
And then it came the Pearl Jam song, and it started out, it starts, I don't know if you're familiar with that song, but it starts really quiet, and then it just like slowly grows to this massive crescendo. And so I just like took the mic, and I'm standing in front of these people, all these strangers, and I remember going, like, I didn't ask any of my band members to go because I was like, I don't want people to hear me sing because it's probably going to be pretty bad. And so I start singing this song, and I'm just in my own little world. My eyes are closed, and I'm singing this song, and about halfway through, I kind of look up and opened one of my eyes, and the crowd was like staring at me, and I was like, oh man, I'm like, there's only two reasons, why people stare. Either it's because it's like a train wreck and they don't want to stop watching it, or because it's decent, it's pretty good. And so I just like closed my eyes and got into the song, and closed off everyone and started, getting into this song. And it's not one of those songs where you just kind of, you can't like, you can't half-ass it. You know what I mean? You gotta go for it. And so I was going for it, and it was like an out-of-body experience. I mean, I'm like floating above everyone, just like getting into this song, and then it kind of trails off, on the ending, and I stop, and like the crowd was just like, what the hell? I mean, like half the crowd was like standing ovation. I'm like, this is karaoke? I'm like, this is kind of fun, And my friend, so my friend was like, dude, you got that guy, you can do that. And as an artist, you kind of need, I mean, what gets you into something is kind of your own motivation. You're kind of like, oh, I'm kind of into that, let me give it a shot. But what kind of keeps you going is those other people that say, hey, you're on the right track here.
Right, exactly.
And for me, it was Eddie Vedder. It was like, it gave me that impetus to try other things and try to branch out a little bit. And I remember going home and just thinking, this is a new thing. This is a whole nother part of my life that I can do something with. Because with the guitar, you put your fingers down in the right spots and it makes the noise. And if you got the right pedals and the right guitar, it sounds cool, but you kind of know where it's going to go. But with singing, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
You're like, because one, that's what people listen to most of the time, unless they're guitar players sitting in the back. No mistake there, dude.
Yeah.
But the singing thing, it's like, oh, the girls actually listen to that stuff. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And I was like, it gave me this whole new, like, oh boy, this is a new chapter in my musical journey here, and that I never really planned on, a pleasant thing. And so here 30 years later, I learned a lot of this guy's music over the years, because it's always kind of been my fallback of, something I can do that was decent. I know I could copy that guy and do pretty good. And it gave me the confidence that it's okay to sing low and have a lower voice. You don't have to sound like everyone else.
Right.
And so when the way I got the gig, it was just kind of one of those strange things that I'll never know how it happened. My wife is a tennis instructor out of Black Rock, and she gets the email blasts, and they were one of the sponsors of it. And she comes in the room one day. I was getting ready to go to the studio, and she comes in and she's like, hey, check this out. She shows me this, and she's like, that big cancer fundraiser they have every year. She's like, look who's coming this year. And I'm like, I'm like, Eddie Vedder. I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude's coming to my town. This guy who's, I owe a lot of my career to this guy. And how much are tickets? They're only $4,000 a piece. And I was like, it was like the first time in my life that I was like, I wish I had a little more money in my bank account,
more money.
And I was just like, I wonder if he's got anyone opening for him. And I was like thinking, well, I play a lot of gigs for the resort, and maybe I could make a phone call or something, but I didn't know, and I had to get to the studio, so I just kind of dropped it and just kind of put it out there like, dang it, this guy's coming to my town. How cool is that? But dang, I wish I could go to it,
Yeah.
And I go to the studio, and like 3 or 4 hours later, I come out, I check my email, and there's an email from the food and beverage director, Tamby, at the resort. And she's like, hey, can you, she didn't say, can you open for Eddie Vedder? She said, hey, can you play this event, this showcase event, and open it up for us? And I was like, looking at the date, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's the same date, that Mary just showed me on this flyer thing. And so I call my wife up. I'm like, hey, what was the date on that? And where was it at again? And she's like, on the 28th at 7 o'clock or whatever. And I was like, I think I just got the opening gig for Eddie. and she like screamed, and I just like lost it, started bawling all the way home from the studio, just like, I can't believe this is like really coming true.
Yeah.
And so I get back to her, and I'm like, I'll do this. Is this the gig I think it is? And she's like, yeah, we got to kind of keep it on the down low. And so I said, okay. And she's like, what is your fee going to be? And I was like, well, what do I ask for something like this? And I just said, all right, I'll tell you what, I'll do it for free if you can just get me in front of him for 2 minutes to sign my guitar or something like that. And just to say thank you, And so she's like, I don't know, I can't, I
can't guarantee.
Not even talk, I can't guarantee anything. It just but I'll get you in front of the right people that can make that happen. And I said, that's fair enough. I'll take that. And so day of the show comes up, and I get there like way early, to set up my stuff, and I had it all ready to go. And I was like down below in the little terrace where people come off the boats, and they come up there and have a drink, and then they come up and we eat at the big in the event center, and then his big stage was outside. And so I got all my stuff set up. She calls me up, the food and beverage lady. She's like, hey, he's up here. Now would be a good time to bring your guitar, and maybe he'll sign it. And I said, okay, cool. So I go get my guitar. I set it right next to the stage off these little steps, and I'm standing there like a little fanboy, like, ooh, Eddie was up there doing his sound check, which was so cool because to me, I didn't go to school to learn music. I learned everything from just watching people and to see someone, a pro like that, like do his sound check. And I was just thinking he was just going to strum his guitar for an hour and do it. But he had an amazing show with all these different guitars and mandolins and ukuleles and organ and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is so cool to watch this guy. And I'm like the only one watching. Everyone else is busy hooking up cables and, getting their stuff ready. And I'm just like standing there in heaven, just like, oh, this is so cool. I hope I can meet him. And I'm there for 2 minutes and the security guy comes up. He's like, hey, what are you doing, man? And I was like, explained to him. I said, hey, I'm the opener guy. They didn't tell you about me. And he's like, no. And I was like, here's the deal. I said, my mom's dying of cancer right now. And I cleared my schedule just to do this show for free because Eddie's like my hero. And I just want to meet him and have him sign my guitar. If I could have him, please do that. That's all I want. And he's like, all right, hold on. So he goes and calls the lady. He's like, who's this Bill Bozly guy? Because I'm about to have him removed from the premises, And I'm like, and she's like, no. He does a lot of events for us. He's a local guy. He just happens to be a big, huge fan and just wants to meet Eddie. And could you, maybe help me out with this? And he's like, okay. So he's legit. He's not some crazy fanboy that's going to start, wanting to make out with Eddie if he goes up the stage. And she's like, I'm pretty sure no, but but I know this guy pretty well because I do a lot of events down there. And so she's so he leads me into he's finishing up his sound check, and his little green room was back like where the brides and stuff get ready there. And so he leads me back there, like kind of close to it, and then there's some other people in front of me that had with the benefit that had to get some stuff signed and everything. So he finally he's like, all right, grab your guitar and come back here, and I go back in the back, and there's like 2 dressing rooms, a big one and a little one. And he's like, we go back to the little one, and there's just Eddie sitting there at this little table, and he's like, Bill Bozly, meet Eddie Vedder. And I was like, I had like lost it because it was like, here he is like in person, and so we got to talking and chatting, and he was just like the nicest guy in the world. And we got to talking about all kinds of things. And my dad has passed away in April, and we got to talking about that and mandolins, all kinds of stuff. And so he's like, hey, you got your guitar? What's up with this? I said, would you sign my guitar? It would mean a lot to me if you would, autograph it for me. And he's like, oh, I don't know. It's a nice guitar. I don't want to ruin that, And I said, dude,
it's okay.
I said, you got to realize something. I said, this guitar has been my main guitar for like 10 years, which, I play a lot of gigs. So it's got over 1,000 gigs that I've played on this. And almost every one of those gigs, I've played one of your songs. And so this guitar with your music has brought a lot of smiles to a lot of people. And it would just mean a lot to me for you to sign it, because after this show, I want to retire it and just hang it up on my wall in a case. And it's not something I'm doing so I can sell it or anything like that. This is in my will to my daughter, and she's a big fan of yours. We used to sing your music, around the campfire, and so just that would mean a lot to me. So he sat down, which I brought the guitar today, by the way, to look at it.
Take a picture.
He sits down and he starts drawing these little waves and everything on it, and I was like, what are you doing, But keep going, I didn't know where this was going, and I come to find out that's kind of his signature, is he draws a wave, and because he's a big surfer guy. And so but he drew on mine, he drew 3 waves. So I was like, ooh, this is really cool. That's pretty rare. And then he wrote a little lyric, one of the lyrics of from one of his songs. It's called Ride the Wave. It's not the name of the song, but it's one of the lyrics from it. And it kind of is my one of my mantras of life, ride that wave where it takes you, because you can plan things out all you want, but you just never know. You can't. If I had to plan my music career out at 15, I would have never dreamed that this is where I would be making my living and doing. My dream was that Metallica was going to show up in front of my house and be like, "Hey, you know all our songs. Get in the get in the bus, dude." And that didn't work out. So here I am in Coeur d'Alene, and he's like signing my guitar. We got to chatting, and then I was like, "Hey, I got to do my sound check," because I couldn't do my sound check because the power wasn't hooked up. And so he's like, "All right, we'll get down there." I had like 10 minutes before my show was supposed to start. And he's like, "Oh, you gonna play that guitar?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna play that." And he gave me a handful of guitar picks, which for a guitar player, that's like a big thing, to get some picks. And he gave me, he's like, "Give some to your daughter and your friends and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, this is so cool! What a nice guy!" And he's like, "Get down there and crush it. I want to be listening." And I said, "Okay, no pressure." So I was still like, it wasn't even in my clothes. I had to like run, down below. And Mary's like, "Did you get to talk to him? Did you talk to him?" I'm like, "Yeah, I changed my clothes." And so I dropped off my stuff, and I'm like, "Get that guitar out and put it in the rack, I'll be right back." And I come down, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this, on your guitar. This is so cool." And so I played my little show down there. It was like an hour opening slot, and it was so,
that's great.
An hour, and it was like boats are out there listening, and I was like, "This is just the coolest thing." And he might be listening up there, who knows, So I get done with my set, and then we're all going to go up and eat, and they had this big massive buffet for everyone there, because there was all the stars and sports people there and stuff, and who I didn't know hardly any of them. I recognized like one or two guys. I was like, I think I've seen that guy on TV, but that's not really my thing, and so I was like, I'm going to see Eddie in a few minutes do a personal little show for like less than 1,000 people. That's like really cool, and I got in for free. And my wife, I got her in too, which made it extra special, because it's nice to have someone to share these memories, and otherwise she probably wouldn't have believed me, of this stuff. And so we're like in the middle of eating, and I was walking across the room to get a drink, and my phone, I noticed, because my phone, I'd turned it off because of when I'm playing, I don't want to go off. And so I look at my phone, and there's like a bunch of phone calls from the food and beverage person. I'm like, what is she trying to get a hold of me for? And so I answer, she's like, "Where are you? You need to get to the green room, like right now." And I was like, okay. She's like, "Eddie wants to talk to you." And I was like, okay. So I go back to the green room area, and the bouncer, or the security guy, who we're like chums now, he's like, "Get back here, Bill." And so he takes me back, and this time he's in the big green room, and there's like there's food and stuff out, and he's just by himself. It's just he's like, comes in, he's like, "Hey, how was your show, your set?" And I was like, "I crushed it, dude, just like you said." I'm like, it was awesome. He's like, "That was cool," which I thought was cool, that he asked at least, and he's like, "Hey, Rockin' in the Free World from Neil Young." I said, "Do I?" I'm like, "Dude, I've been playing that song ever since I watched you play it in '93 or '94 with Neil Young on the Video Music Awards." I remember we all, like our whole band, ganged up around our one TV, because in Germany you only have like one station, and it was like, we all ganged up and we're watching him, and I remember watching it like, "Oh, that's so cool." He's getting jammed with like his idol Neil Young, which Pearl Jam backed Neil Young up on a tour for a while back then. Did you go there? Yeah, Mirrorball. Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, I know that song." I'm like, he was like, "Wow, that's so cool. You remember that show?" And that was a special night. I said, "Yeah, I bet." I'm like, "This is kind of a special night for me, And he's like, "So you want to play it with me and close the show out?" And I was like,
yeah.
I gotta go home.
And so I was like, "Oh, I can fit you in there." And so I'm like, "Oh, what do I do?" So he's writing down his set list and finishing it up, by hand. And he's like, "Okay, how do you say your name and everything, and how do you spell it and everything?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah. And so do I play one of my guitars?" He's like, "Well, you can play one of mine if you want." And I was like, "All right, I'll do that. That'd be cool. I'll make an exception on this. I kind of like mine, but I'm sure you got some decent stuff, So, so he's like, "Yeah, after this song, Big Hot Sun, after that, that's when we'll call you up and he'll get you up there and you can do the song with me. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. So we went out, and I had to like kind of keep it like secret for the people that we were talking with and stuff. But I told Mary, and I'm like, you're not going to believe this, and so we go out and watch the show, which was just amazing. And then the big hot sun comes up, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is it, and I'm watching the security guard, like over there like a little puppy, like, oh, and he just kind of gives me one little finger, because I was like waiting right by the side, and I go running back there. I'm like, I'm ready, and so I go around, and I had a little guitar tech guy that was, he's like, yeah, everything's up there ready. You want a microphone? I was like, oh, he didn't say anything about singing, but why not? So he went up there and got everything all ready, and then Eddie did like this big long intro that was just, I thought was just the sweetest thing. He wasn't just like, hey, we got a special guest, there's some Bill guy.
Yeah.
He was like, this is a guy I met before the show. He opened the show for Down Below. You guys probably heard him as you're walking up, and he's lived here his 45 years, which is probably all his life, which I thought was cool because I'm 50. I was like, knock 5 years off of that, and I'll take it. And he, so I get up there, and I mean, he mentioned something about, apparently my band has had a big influence on his career and stuff. So I'd like to have him join me for this last song. And so we get up there, and everything was ready to go. I was like, this is so cool. Everything's ready. I don't have to plug anything up or tune anything. Yeah. This is so nice. And he's like, all right, you ready? And we like just locked in. Like, it's funny if you watch the video, it's on YouTube. And
we're gonna have
to put a link to that.
And you can see our legs. I mean, we're like we're like two dancers at Britney Spears concert, just like totally in sync, like just jamming, like we'd been playing forever. And I was like, great. Oh, this is so cool. And I'm just looking like, this is Eddie over here, and we're playing with him. And he looks at me, he's like, hey, you want to take the second verse? And I was like, okay. I was like, yeah. and we're playing, this is all we're playing, and I was like, oh, I can't remember the words.
Yeah.
And this song I've played like a million times, and I'm like, I can't remember the words. And he's like, oh, I got it. And so he goes and he sings the next verse, and I was like, I'll take the third one, and because I could remember the words to that verse for some reason.
Yeah.
And so we're going, I do the third verse, and actually I messed up a line in that, but he kind of got me back, steered me right on the right track again, and we sang it, and it was beautiful. We had this big long finale where he's just like calling out these chords, and we're just like playing like we'd done it a million times. It was just the weirdest thing. It was like, of all the people I've jammed with, sometimes it's just like pulling teeth, it's painful, but with him it was like, I felt, and I've watched him so many times play that I was just like, I was meant to do this for this moment, and it was just really, it was just a special thing, and it was, the weirdest thing was I've never had like so many cameras in my face,
Right.
It was really, that was the first thing, like, oh, this is really happening, like normally at my shows I'll have like one person kind of off in the corner, kind of nonchalantly filming, but this was like 100 phones like all in my face. I'm like, ooh, I better not mess up. And so, of course I messed up. So, but it was just a really cool, one of those things. I'm still pinching myself, almost 2 months later, I guess it's been, and I still like, I'm just going, what are the chances?
So this just happened like 2 months ago?
Yeah, July 28th, yeah.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
That is great.
Oh, I love that. What a great story and a great memory for you.
Oh, yeah. I can't. He was the nicest guy. I mean, they say sometimes you don't meet your heroes, and I've opened for Stephen Marley when he came to town, and a couple when I was in the country band. Oh, that was another band I was in. I was in the Brian Larson band. I forgot about that, and the Jam Shack. I forgot all this stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, all these good bands. Yeah, that I played in, and so I've opened for some big names over the years, but he was like the one that I never thought in a million years, and it's like to me it was just an honor to say thank you, for someone, because it's not often I have tons of guitar heroes and songwriting heroes and all kinds of people that I look up to, and I'll never get a chance to say thanks, and let them know what an impact they had on my life, and then for to be able to say that and for him to get it,
Yeah.
it's like he got it. He understood.
He
Because I
understood.
was like on the verge of tears the whole time. Like, I don't even know what to say, dude. You're such a nice guy, and he was just like,
That's
he got it,
Yeah.
and he didn't have to do that what he did,
No.
and say,
Right.
come up and play with me, and do that, and it was just like one of those things that you're just like, how did this happen, and it was meant to be, and I didn't have to make any phone calls. It just dropped in my lap,
Yeah.
and of all the people in town that it dropped in, it happened to be the guy that just, because I'm not the best musician in town, I'm not, not the best singer, it just happens to, happen to
Yeah.
one of those things, like I said,
Right.
I'll be shaking my head on this one for the rest of my life,
Right.
with a smile,
Right.
because it was a great experience.
Yeah. That's great.
So, wow, that's
a great story.
An amazing story.
I feel the joy
Thanks for sitting
from
through
across
that.
the table. That's amazing.
I know. So I know. Follow that.
I know. How?
What's coming up
Yeah.
up for you?
Well, it's it's time of year when things kind of slow down a little bit. So
Sure.
at this time of year, I always do a bunch of shows out at Green Bluff at Seamers Farm, big pumpkin patch out there.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I've got, I think, 4 shows out there. 2 of them are this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Although by the time this airs, probably it'll be past that. But I got a
Right.
couple in October. You can find my gigs at BillBozly.com. Make sure you spell it right, Bozly. .com, and that has usually my schedule on it. Most of my stuff this year has been private stuff. That's what I typically make my bread and butter off of. So
Okay.
you can always book me for your private party if you really want to hear me.
There you go.
So I do a lot of that. After playing, years and years I used to do 200 plus gigs a year, and so I just kind of got burnt out on doing that. So I like doing the private stuff is great.
Sure.
I got weddings, I do all kinds of things like that. But as far as that, what's coming up, I got 2 albums that I'm working on. I got the music for. I just came from the studio today, and I'm working on those. One's going to be an acoustic album, which people have been asking for a long time, because both my 2 albums before this, Remedial Melodies and Turning Corners, were both like with a full band, because I play all the instruments in the band. It's just one of those things. Prince is a huge influence in how he plays everything. I always wanted to do that, and so it's a lot of fun doing that. But people are like, "Hey, I see you play by yourself," and then I hear this, I'd like to hear just some acoustic stuff. And I kind of separated all the music I've been writing over the last few years into acoustic and then electric. So I'm going to do acoustic, get that out of the way. I'm really excited about that, just to kind of keep it organic and stuff that's a little percussion instead of big production. And then the second one's going to be a little bit bigger production, but still pretty. What I'd like to eventually do, as far as the future goes, is start playing more original stuff. And I'd like to find a venue around here that I could do like a showcase at, have an opener to help some of the new people coming up to do their thing, but turn it into a regular, maybe weekly thing, like Live After 5. But Live After 5 ends, every year, and people are like, "What do I do?" And Coeur d'Alene's not the small town that it was 10 years ago, as you guys probably noticed. And so I think there's more of an audience, and people are willing to come from Spokane, Post Falls, which is all grown, Liberty Lake. I mean, it's all one big, huge town now, pretty much. So I'd like to find a way to help just people express, because I know a lot of the local musicians, a lot of them write songs. There's just not a venue to play it at. That's not some. That's a nice place where people can come and they can invite. That's not a bar, a bit, basically, that people can come and bring their families and have a 2-hour show of some good music and listen to some quality stuff in a nice, clean environment. And not charge $100 for these things. Keep it reasonable so that it's like a movie, going to see a movie, except you're going to support someone that is local, that really makes a difference in their lives. I mean, to say that I've been a musician for 15 years and that's been my only job for 15 years, like, blows me away. And a lot of people are like, "How do you do this?" And I do it just by constantly trying to reinvent myself and try something new and not just say, hey, this is what everyone else is doing. I'm going to keep doing that. And this is what's paying the bills. But, as a musician, you got to kind of reinvent yourself every once in a while to keep it fresh and go, this is something new that I think people will want. Because if they've seen me, 3,000 gigs I played in the last 15 years. Most people that want to see me have seen me, at one point or another. And it's be nice to finally give them something that what they've been asking for. Because a lot, it's frustrating to play original music in a bar when people want to hear, the Freebird, It's like, no, I just want to play my songs, and a lot of people ask for that, and those people that ask for it, they really appreciate it. And I think there's a lot of people that don't know that I even play as much original stuff as I do, and it's been sitting on these albums for a long time, just wanting a venue. So that's the future. That's good. For me. I'm hoping to get that kicked off this next year after I get these done. So.
Nice.
Good.
Well, this has been so nice. Yeah. Oh my God, I love these stories.
Oh, thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys having me. It's good to see you again after 20 years.
Right?
Yeah.
Still in Post Falls.
Still in Post Falls in the same house. Well, it's a different house because it's been remodeled.
Yeah.
A lot. But anyway, it's really great to hear your stories and just to hear your obvious love for what you do. It's awesome.
Enjoy.
Well, thanks. I do love what I do. Every day, every day I drive home, I'm like, when I was 15, you don't know if you're making the right decision. But like I said, I knew from day one, this is what I'm going to do, and to be able to stick with it this long and have a house that's paid for and cars and everything, it's like I'm not rich, but I'm happy.
That's awesome.
I'm very happy, and I go home from work every day going, I can't wait to go to work again.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's great.
Great.
Making smiles.
Thanks.
Right. Well, thanks again.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Well, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You bet. And I'm Allie.
And I'm Callie. And whatever you do today, make sure it's creative.
And go ride the wave.
Yeah.
The Allie and Callie Artcast is a program of the Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance and is sponsored by NIA, North Idaho Alliance, a woman-based leadership organization designed to inspire, uplift, and impact your community and lives. And Tubbs Coffee Roasters, globally sourced, locally roasted coffee.